start the evening off with our local police report. I'm sure that Sergeant Garcia's got plenty to add this evening with all of the weather we've had recently.
Good morning, everyone. Actually, not much to add because of the weather and everything that we've had going on the past few days. Um, However, yeah, we've had some yesterday and day before the weekend. We were activated, so we spent all weekend working. Of course, the Walk for Peace. If everyone has was able to attend that or heard about that, that was a pretty amazing experience to see the monks who were walking from, I believe it was Fort Worth, Texas, all the way to DC, came through downtown Raleigh, up towards Capitol Boulevard, Buffalo Road, into Roseville, making their way north. That was awesome experience to see. Hopefully, some of y'all went to that. And then, of course, the weather-related calls actually not too bad for us. I don't have the stats because we were home today from working the entire weekend. So we basically worked 7 days straight. So today was our break. So that's why I'm not in uniform. I'm in my home and in front of my computer. So other than that, the same thing, like I've always said, is the reminders. The most important thing is locking your doors, keeping your valuables secured and not in your car, securing your home. Of course, as always, any questions, any concerns that anyone may have, we're aware of a lot of the speeding complaints, speeding concerns. For some reason, we've gotten tons of requests for speed survey signs to be installed in certain areas of this district. And I can just say it is a rotation. So it just goes by the list as we get the requests, and we're getting them a lot. So it's just a matter of getting to that next list or the next location on our list. If you have submitted a request, we'll get to you. The signs stay up for at least 7 to 10 days, so it's not an immediate installation. It has to go through that time spans for us to get the good data to ensure whether or not, number one, there is a speeding issue, and if there is, when we can put the resources besides just an officer sitting running radar. We have other resources we can do for speed enforcement in addition to that. And that's why those survey signs help us. So I'm getting all the requests. Thank you so much for that, for being involved with that project. Any questions anyone asks that I can answer for them tonight?
Do you want to remind everybody how they, I guess, do just contact you in general or?
The easiest way is just send me an email.
Okay.
I I can miss a phone call, but I'll never miss an email. Just send me an email. Let me know the area, the street that you're looking at or concerned about. What if there's a block number, an intersecting street? Let me know. And of course, the time of day where you're seeing these variables happening, these speeding incidents going on. That way, I can kind of gauge it on the survey side. We can kind of manipulate the time, that we want, that everyone is seeing, that we won't be able to see unless the sign is up.
And I assume you have so many of them that you must have a bunch of them it's going to be a while before you get to them.
Yeah, oh yeah, we have 3 pairs, so we have 6. We can't just put one up because we want to put both sides of the road. So we have a total of 6. 2 go up each time, and they're all out right now being surveying different areas of the district. So once one gets done, we'll bring it to another location.
Okay, excellent. In terms of, I guess, people just staying off the roads during the storm, was that pretty successful?
It was actually, and like I said, I don't know no, there were accidents when we worked on Saturday. Um, there were correction yesterday. Uh, as the day picked up in the morning session, there wasn't anything going on, but as the day picked up, people for whatever reason had to go somewhere. So I know from the time that we started from 7 in the morning until about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. My officers answered maybe 4 wrecks, so not a
Wow.
lot. That's actually very, very good, but that's just in our district. But overall, I mean, I wouldn't say, and I'm just gauging from what I heard on the radio, no more than 15 throughout that 8 hour when we worked. I don't know what happened at night. Um, I would assume at night was even more less busy, just because everyone at that point is home. But overall, for the day was really, really good. For us to get off on time, that's a good day. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they said there were 600 accidents in the
Is
area.
that statewide or citywide?
600, the
State,
area.
the
Yes,
state?
on the news, 600 in the city. Yeah, they said, I guess it was Wake County, 600 accidents.
Okay.
That's a lot.
I promise you that was not in Raleigh. That was not Raleigh specific. That we would have been in a apocalypse if that happened. So no, it might be countywide, it might be statewide, but that is not a Raleigh stat.
Any more questions for the sergeant? Hearing none. I guess you got off easy tonight.
Not easy.
And got to stay home. You had a bonus.
That's right. Well, we'll see y'all next month. Have a good evening.
Take care.
All right. Bye-bye.
All right. Let's get into our hot topic for tonight. Now, I'm going to give you my response to what happened with North Hills. And then we'll get into what I'd like to hear is your input. A couple of things. Sure, the majority of people were not happy with the actions of city council and the vote turnout. It wasn't like they didn't have all the facts of the case. They should have been deluged by the facts of the case. I see Mitchell's online with us. So I didn't quite understand why the vote turned out the way it did. Now, the way the rezoning occurred, there are still some aspects of the Midtown area plan that I'm going to address to John Kane and see if we can get some of those things built back into the rezoning. One of which is most important to me is the 20-story building that's going to be off of Lassiter Mill. It should be tiered. It was tiered originally, and I don't see why it's not tiered in what's going to come about over the next 10 years. That's one of the things for me. Unfortunately, the way the process works now, everything goes through administrative review, which really means that the public doesn't have any say into the process. So your only recourse right now is to try to contact Kane Realty if there's something in particular you'd like to see inputted, like to see it in terms of how they're going to build out the process. I'd say stay in touch with Kane Realty. That's your primary avenue, I'd say, at this point. And I'm going to open up the floor for other questions, concerns. Before I do that, Mitchell, do you want to chime in here since you were one of the people that voted for it?
Yes, I'm sure people are aware the vote was 6-2 in favor. I can't speak for my colleagues. Some people explained their rationale for the vote at the table. I explained mine before I voted, and I can share it now, or I can just ask you to look at the record. But after looking at the report, staff's report, I had determined it was consistent with both the comprehensive plan and the future land use map. And I had named other points of why Plan Commission voted 7-1 in favor. Also prefaced it by saying that I had received personally, and I'm sure other council members did as well over 300 emails. I'd have to say the majority were in favor. I did not check. Some people disclosed where they lived, some said Raleigh. And so from my perspective, it was almost evenly split, those in favor and those in opposition. And so I just wanted to clarify that when I got those emails, I read all of them and heard, some were longer than others, some were very succinct. And when it relates to transitions, I'll just correct Larry on this point. When it goes to administrative review, staff looks at the zoning code. The zoning code gets public input as it is adopted and goes through the process. And the zoning code has built in, by law, not policy, transition zones. And so any transitions, step downs, step backs that are required will be held in the code. I also stated that before I voted. And so with those reasons, the fact that it was consistent, the Plan Commission had their process, voted 7-1 in favor. The consistency statement, it was a reason why, and the public benefits that the applicant offered through conditions. Both myself and 5 other members felt that they was in public interest and therefore it was approved.
I'll just
So,
add, I'm just
yeah,
going to add two things before anybody starts to speak, just two minor things. Mitchell, I appreciate what you're saying in terms of when it goes through review, things that should happen. It's been our experience in the past that those things do not necessarily happen, such as the transitions. One perfect example for that is the Cardinal expansion on St. Albans that was supposed to taper down to the neighborhood. It did not. It rose to an 18-story building. It was not within the original rezoning request, and yet it was allowed to go through administrative review and be approved. So I don't have the faith in the administrative review, for one. Then the second thing is, from a public safety standpoint, the 12-story building that's going to be on Rowan, there's a condition for that for a garage opening. That garage opening, I think, is going to be very unsafe, particularly for the cars that park along that road when the kids get out of school for pickup. And I think unless they pay special attention to that during the review, you're going to wind up with cars going in and out of a garage blindly. They won't be able to see up and down the road. Just minor points. But again, I'll take those up with Kane Realty because I just don't trust the administrative review or see a way to have any public input. I asked that question specifically, by the way, to the planning coordinator if the public would have any input into the administrative review. And I was told that no, that's not the case.
That
So,
is correct. When I was plan director, I can't remember how many administrative reviews that we do. If the it is administrative review is administrative review. It is things that once it goes to rezoning, they have to follow the law. And if somebody wants to appeal that staff did not follow the law, that is a very serious violation. And so, from my perspective, for the public to review every administrative review, I'm not saying it has some or all. I'm not sure how projects would move forward because the law, the code is yes or no. It's objective, it's not subjective. It has a height limit. You either meet it or you don't meet it. So I have a different perspective because I oversaw site plan review, and we are required, all those zoners that look at those applications. Basically, there's a checklist. It's an objective review. You either meet the number or you don't. And it's as simple as that. So that is my perspective. And like I said, I was on that staff side. And the majority of the projects that go forward here in the city are administratively approved.
okay.
are we going to open a chat box or do we just raise our hand? You don't have that feature.
What I'd like you to do is use the react and put your hand up. You have something to say. And Kathleen will acknowledge you.
Oh, reactions. Okay. All right. I don't know if that worked or not.
Roberta, since you're up, you might as well go ahead and have your say.
Yes, I was trying to find it. Well, I guess getting back to what Mr. Silver said. So 300 people email you particularly. And, I guess this is what I talked about in my talk when I presented the other night is the transparency and the lack of coordination. You're basing your input that this was something we all wanted, and you don't even know where these people came from. I mean, to me, some of the people speaking in favor of the project and then other people, chiming in and filling the audience that were actually some of them from Durham. I mean, if you're going to sign up to speak, they asked me my address. So I think that same transparency needs to apply to people sending in an email. If you're going to pay attention to it, then it should be from somebody who voted for you. So is there a way that, I thought that you had to give your address when you spoke and that you were actually a voter and especially in this particular area, in this neighborhood. But as far as other people talking, I just feel like I'm not sure that you got a good sense of what the neighborhood was like because I walked the neighborhood with another neighbor. And in 5 hours of walking and talking and giving out 100 flyers, we met one person who said, oh yeah, I want this. And they kept running away because they didn't want to discuss it with me. So I'm not sure that you had a good sense of who you were representing, because if you don't know who talked to you and who emailed you, how can you use that as your analysis? So, and then
I didn't say, yeah. Okay, I'm sorry. I'll let you finish, Roberta.
Yeah, go ahead. That's fine. Because it's a kind of
I didn't use that as my analysis. I focused my attention on whether it is consistent or inconsistent with the comprehensive plan. That is first and foremost. When I hear from those who wrote me, and these were emails, some provided their address, some said Raleigh. People were passionate on both sides, and I did get those emails and I did read them. But for me, the bottom line is it consistent or inconsistent? What was the vote of the Planning Commission? As I hear from neighbors, and there's a way that I could have conditions to make the case better, that is how I listen. I don't say, 80 say yes, 30 say no, therefore I vote that way. I'd have to, because when someone submits an application, the city puts out a comprehensive plan. We're asking them, do this. This is what we want you to do to help grow our city. And so that is what I look at first and foremost. And as I hear the public comment, it allows me to look a lot deeper on some of those concerns to see if there are conditions that can mitigate some of those concerns. And that's what I do on every single case, not just North Hills.
Well, that
That staff
obviously
report to
didn't
me is
happen.
critical. It is
Yeah.
critical.
Yeah, but that didn't happen because the plan we were going by, had the stories that we were ready to accept, and then that didn't happen. So, but my other question is that lady who came and at the last minute, the council had questions and the city planner laid out, I don't know what her name is, she wasn't prepared to represent the city. So she gets the lady lawyer who doesn't even live in Raleigh to get up, and she had a long time to talk. And if you give somebody that kind of a talk to make their fashion show presentation, as she did, talking up all this unrelated stuff, I think at that point, the opposition should have been given some time too. The lady apparently didn't have something that somebody asked a question about, so she called on the lawyer to stand up and talk, which again was really, I think, unprofessional. So I think they should come prepared with all their charts and be ready to talk. And why was that lawyer woman given all that extra time to talk just before you voted? I
It
think
is not
that needs to be
uncommon
corrected.
that the council, the public speaking time for both sides have expired. It is not uncommon for council to have additional questions, and council did.
Right.
And then depending on the question, staff could answer, the applicant can answer, or any of their experts. And so that is normally what happens on any zoning case once time has expired. It is not uncommon that if the staff does not know the answer, they defer to the applicant.
Hmm. Well, I think we should have been given some time to talk too then.
Yeah, I agree with Roberta. I really think, and council has the power to acknowledge the people from the audience, particularly the public. And I think when you allow the applicant's lawyer to explain in their words, I guess, what they consider to be appropriate and not appropriate, I think the public should have that same opportunity. I'll just leave it go at that. I think the process is broke. And as far as the public goes, I think there should be more allowance for the public input. So, but anybody else want to speak?
We're getting a hand raised from Chuck Newcomer.
Are they unmuted?
Hey, sorry. You just answered what I was going to say, Larry, which is the process needs to, be changed so that public can have more time to present their case. So that's what I was going to say. Thank you.
Yeah.
Jane Hubbard.
Yes, my question is, why isn't the traffic considered and resolve that issue before you add so much more automobiles and vehicles on the road in a place that is so congested?
Traffic was analysis conducted in the staff report. I know it is very hard for people to believe, but in the staff report, it said the existing entitlement as developed would have more traffic than what council approved. There were less trips on what was brought before the council than the existing entitlement. Now, for many people, that's counterintuitive. They're saying, wait a minute, if you build more, it generates more traffic. I think we all have to recognize, and I'm sure Lyra will get to it later, there will be a transportation committee to discuss Six Forks in general. But Six Forks has people coming from the north, from the south, from the east and the west, passing by and through North Hills, not going to North Hills. And so the analysis in the staff report actually concluded that there'll be less trips with what council approved than what was under the existing entitlement. People will disagree. There's not much I can say, but I have to rely on the staff report as well as a transportation expert that came to the Midtown CAC and actually said over time, trips went down as a result of what was developed at North Hills, because when you have a mixed use development, it captures trips where people rather walk than drive from one destination to another within the North Hills Midtown location. So people disagree with that, but I have to go by the staff report.
I'll just make one fast comment on that. When the roads are overloaded, the counts can't really change. You can only put so many cars in so many spaces at one time. And the person who made the presentation at the CAC meeting was one of the contractors to the applicant. It was not somebody from the transportation department. And I think that's going to come out. You're right. When we have the transportation and transit committee meeting, I hope all of that will come out. And that, by the way, that's not going to be in January. It's going to be in February, just for everybody's knowledge.
I thought they said that study was 10 years old. I mean, where did I get that from? The last time, because they said that Lassiter Mill got a grade of an F last time it was evaluated.
The last TIA that I'm aware of was probably about 10 years.
So is this the same study Mr. Silver's talking about, or is it something different? Because 10-year data doesn't seem like it's very helpful. And especially if it got a grade of F 10 years ago, and hello.
What I'm referring to is to the staff evaluation report, which is public. Aside from the planning department, the city has all of their relevant departments, stormwater and few others, transportation. They also look and weigh in on this request. It was the transportation department that had their piece inserted in the evaluation, and it talks about the different trips from what is existing today and what's being proposed. That's what I'm referring to in the staff report.
Thank you, Mitchell.
Larry, we've got Shelley and then Linda.
Yes, so unfortunately, I was unable to attend last week, so my apologies there. But I am one of the people that wrote in to you, Mr. Silver, and it was in part referencing the transportation demand management plan for that area. That originally there was the consideration, and North Hills was being considered a hub, including the potential for bus rapid transit style, not BRT as in Western Boulevard and downtown Raleigh, but BRT style service that would go down Six Forks and into downtown Raleigh. And now council has reviewed and said that we can't afford to do the improvements on Six Forks Road as we were told we were going to get and that we pay our taxes for. And included in this plan from King Realty, there is no increase in transit service as part of this, and there's not a location identified in this plan. So as a professional planner, as someone who has invited you to be a speaker, as a content expert on this, I want to hear exactly why, and not it's in the plan. I want to know why you, our elected official, did not expect more, ask for more, or ask the planning staff for more when it comes into being able to provide an affordable transportation option in this space.
Well, there are two separate questions. Let me take the Six Forks road widening first, and then I'll take the transit second. In terms of the Six Forks, you probably weren't aware that we had a council retreat this weekend, And I am very concerned as a new council member about what happened with Six Forks. We're now discussing how do we get that corridor back on the conversation because I want to make sure if the public voted for a bond that included Six Forks, I'm very concerned about what happened. And so we discuss lessons learned and how we can get the conversation about Six Forks widening going again because those problems will not go away. So that's the Six Forks piece. And as a planner, I fully support that we have to take a look at what to do. Staff is aware. It'll start with the conversation next month about Six Forks, and we'll continue. In terms of transit, you're absolutely right. This is something I had recommended when we did the 2030 comprehensive plan and identified transit corridors. Actually, I wasn't looking at Six Forks. We were looking at a route that would go down Wake Forest to Falls of News, down St. Albans to make a loop. That was something I advocated for, but there's something that the city has to take the lead on doing. It's our infrastructure and how the private sector could support us. I don't know many cities that put the entire transit system a corridor and asking the private sector to do it. It's public-private partnership. It's a shared responsibility. And the idea of transit has not gone away. That's still first and foremost. It's something when we identified North Hills and Midtown as a growth center, we knew that transit had to be an option. If you look at our growth framework map, we identified those growth centers, but also multimodal corridors. We did the growth centers well. We have to do a lot better job on those corridors. And that's something I will strongly advocate that we do something, but it has to be a shared responsibility between the private sector and the city, but the city has to take the lead.
Thank you.
Linda?
Hey, I'm not gonna show my face because I just washed my hair, just saying that. I saw online the council meeting last week, and my main issue is also the traffic. I've lived where I live, which is off of Lassiter Mill, off of Ramblewood Drive, which is on the other side of Six Forks, just inside the Beltline. I've been here 42 years. I have seen this whole thing explode around me, and the only issue I've had is the traffic and how it has not, the intersections have not come up to date with what we need. And in my neighborhood, I cannot get out of the neighborhood sometimes because of the backup on Lassiter Mill Road from Six Forks. And this is inexcusable. The intersection of Lassiter Mill and Six Forks, the guy during the meeting, that one of the traffic people said, this is one that was not completed when the Kane thing started. And what we need there is a dedicated right turn lane so that right turns and going straight don't share the same lane. If someone's going straight, we have a backup for people who want to turn right and can't go. So these backups are now. And when we add, I can't tell you how many hundreds of people are going to end up in these buildings, but I know that they have evaluated that people are going to walk more. But I can tell you from experience that is not going to happen. It is not going to happen. People who live there and work there will need to park and get in and out. And I don't even want to think about what the traffic is going to be like when those buildings get done. And, you know, the fact that they didn't do the Six Forks expansion was such a disappointment. And the fact we all know if you wait and wait and wait, it costs more and more and more. And, you know, so anyway, I just say the traffic and the situation right now at some of those intersections was not taken care of in the last 10 years. And it's just getting worse. And at Christmas time, forget it. I can't even get near that place. You know, I don't even know how to get out of my neighborhood except that I have to take a very long way. So anyway, I just really want to see something get done before these buildings come. I mean, this is not, you know, out of line to request this. That's all I have to say.
Anybody else with their hand up? I will just say in terms of the money that was laid out for the Six Forks expansion project, it was very disappointing to only leave $7 million remaining and take the rest of the money out of District A, knowing we have a problem that they didn't leave sufficient money to fix hardly anything. Even the intersection at Millbrook, I thought they would fix that, but they didn't fix that either. All they're going to do is
It's
add.
still, no, that's still on the books. It was the Carroll Middle School sidewalk. It was a light, an intersection. It's an additional crosswalk, and then the Millbrook Six Forks. That is still on the table, as well as studying the Midtown Bridge. So you're absolutely right. And Larry, I'm equally disappointed as well. When I came in, this was something when I first got briefed, very concerned. And I guess I shocked my colleagues when we talked about steady state. And I'm saying, from my perspective, the Six Forks expansion conversation is not over. We gave the money to other shortfalls for other projects. And I said that if we're going to have this conversation, we have a credibility issue with the public. We talked about Six Forks, and it has to be back on the table. And so everyone here on this call is hearing me say it right now. I said it at the retreat, and I meant it. And so it's going to start with the conversation in a month, and then it will continue as we move toward this new capital funding project called Steady State. And I did say that we have to be ready to go. We can't go through cycles of review. Anytime you do that, the price keeps going up. So I'm still very committed to the expansion of improving Six Forks. And so I share your disappointment. And that was something I was very troubled when I came on board and found out that the price was just impossible to afford.
Just one final comment. The intersection of Millbrook and Six Forks, as part of the Six Forks plan, had a complete street improvement. All they're going to do, as far as I know, and I'd love to be corrected, is going to improve the pedestrian crossings at that intersection. And meanwhile, just above that intersection, there's a rezoning that's going to occur where they're going to convert, I think, a bunch of the government buildings over to, I think, residential or other office buildings. And that also was slated to be improved as part of the Six Forks improvement project. And it's like you have to turn on the light all the time to show what was approved to be done. And yet they take the simpler approach and do the minimal improvements while it doesn't get much better.
Right. Well, let me just clarify what happened with the Six Forks funds. Closing the 500-foot sidewalk gap at the Carroll Middle School, adding a new signalized pedestrian crossing between Northbrook and Northwood, installing a new traffic signal at North Glen, and improving the Millbrook intersection. The other projects was designing the multimodal Midtown Bridge and also addressing the funding gap on Old Wake Forest Road and Dixie Forest Road improvement project. So I have not got an update on those designs, but that's what was remaining, because I did ask for funds to remain in District A and ask for the same consideration when we are a shortfall on Six Forks, should that happen, that I'll be looking for other districts to help cover some of those shortfalls. So I share what you're saying, but this was the information when the council voted on how we wanted to proceed.
The Dixie Forest project was part of that 2017 bond as well. It just shows you it goes back 10 years.
Yep.
Okay. Anybody else?
Jane?
Are they having a problem unmuting?
What is the progress on the multimodal bridge? Because that will impact traffic too, and could make it better, but it sounds like it's not totally funded yet.
You're correct. Money was set aside for the design of the bridge, not the constructing of the bridge. So you are correct. I don't have any information beyond that, but the funding was put in place to design that bridge.
Just as a PS, the road behind North Hills East that is supposed to connect to Navajo Drive and the multimodal bridge is still undone. It's probably the last thing that's going to be done for North Hills East. There's a traffic light there, and the traffic light goes to a dirt pile at the present time. Okay, seeing any more comments before we move on? Mitchell?
Roberta has her hand up. You have to unmute, Roberta.
Is that better? Can you hear me
Yeah.
now? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, the talking about the crosswalks and things, I mean, with the hope that people will walk, although it's super dangerous at this point. We had discussed maybe getting blinking lights when people are in the crosswalk. Is that something that's in that update plan, or is that just a police thing? You know how when you come up to some intersections, like in front of Route, you'll see a flash if there's a pedestrian in the crosswalk? Because I go out there all the time and I just have such fear for those children crossing that street. And if you're going to put more crosswalks in, is that something that's in that plan, or is that
I
something
do
we
not
can
know. I can find that out. So it's okay. I do not know, but I am making a note to find out.
because it's really scary. I mean, people run the red light up here in front of Carroll, and then the crossing guard's in the middle, and people are turning right when they're not supposed to turn on right. And I've seen that guard and those children almost get smushed so many times. And I think that one, especially going up towards Green and up on Millbrook there, it would be, I think that would be something we really need to look into.
I've actually asked transportation to look into that intersection because they're running a pilot program where they can make adjustments to particular intersections. So I asked them to look at Rowan and Six Forks in particular, with perhaps the thought of a dedicated left-hand turn signal when you're coming off of Rowan and go heading south on Six Forks. I don't know how many people have gotten stuck in that intersection, can't complete their turn because the traffic is not moving on Six Forks. Even the fire trucks can't get out when that occurs, and they don't have the ability to change the light, which makes it even worse. So I have tried to get transportation to at least look at that intersection and see if we can make any improvements.
Did Jen have a question?
Sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry about that. Trying to come off of mute. Thanks so much. First CAC meeting, nothing like some anger to get you actively involved. North Glen Drive resident here. Children go to Green, and yes, it is very treacherous to cross Six Forks Road, as Mr. Charles literally defends our children, my 8-year-old, with his life every day and says, "Do not step out in that road." I'm going back to the empty houses on the end of our road that are dilapidated because I'm pretty sure they're city owned at this point.
They were eminent domain.
Eminent domain. My husband and I are listening to this and starting to look pretty terrible. The other thing that I guess the logic to me is, honestly, we've gotten to the point where we avoid Six Forks or in North Hills because it's so beyond crowded. I mean, honestly, I hate dining there at this point, and I'm just so curious about the local impact. It's like an artery, it's like a heart. If you just keep cramming more stuff in there and are not fixing the arteries carrying everything to it and the veins and declogging them, how are we going to get people in and out? And why is it that a billionaire gets his way, but we don't have our roads expanded? And so I think that's my bigger issue is, yes, it complied. And Mr. Silver, you said it, it complied with whatever the governance was. It's a yes or a no. It's a black or a white. But why aren't we fixing what we need in this area first? Why aren't the people getting what they need first before Kane gets what he wants? And I think that's my biggest question that I just don't understand.
Yeah, it's not about giving something what somebody wants. I have to go back, and maybe it's not what people want to hear, but we put out a plan and we're asking people to follow it. So the public, council, the developers know what is the expectation. If we said, oh, we want this here, and then we go, oh, we changed our mind. It's very difficult because we have to figure out where we're going to accommodate another 200 to 250,000 people by 2050. That is daunting. And so we put out a plan to say, this is our expectation. This is where we expect growth to happen. This is where we want to be supported by transportation. And it's very difficult to front load the infrastructure because as a planner, I worked in cities where people laid out millions of dollars of infrastructure and then nothing was built. And then the residents are on the hook with paying a big bill. And so very often, when you see projects going forward, there are some improvements made by an applicant, and there are other improvements made by the city or the taxpayers. I don't know any other approach to go. And so from our perspective, we put out a plan, we give expectations about how we want our city to grow. And when an applicant comes in and is consistent with that plan, we lean toward a yes. Not all the time, but most of the time. If it's inconsistent, then I believe I have an obligation to make any questions and very likely will vote no. So it's not about who is the applicant. For one, I'm speaking for myself, not my colleagues. I look very carefully at the plan, whether it's consistent, inconsistent, as well as other factors before I make a vote. So it's not based on who the applicant is. That is just, at least I'm speaking for myself. That's the approach that I take.
We have a question from Whitney.
Hey, Mitchell, how you doing? I apologize if I got here a little bit late if this question wasn't asked. So my understanding, I think it's the new firehouse is going to be $6 million. Is that correct?
I don't know the price tag, but it will not be at the current location it is today.
Okay, so my understanding is going to be $6 million. So how much of that 6 million is we have to move to firehouse, and how I know Kane put up 500,000 for the new firehouse, but we're having to build onto that for the larger buildings. So I'm just to me, it seems that could we have remodeled the current firehouse or that was been under $1 million, but how much more are we paying for this to accommodate the taller buildings to have the larger fire truck?
Okay, so let me be clear. At that location, they wanted to add a ladder truck. A ladder truck does not fight high-rise buildings. A ladder truck fights buildings as long as a ladder can go. High-rise buildings have a core and it has a standpipe that brings water floor by floor. There is no way you have a ladder truck that can reach a 20 or 30-story building. That's not how firefighting works. They had a desire for a ladder truck to get to your 5, your 3, your 6-story buildings that you see throughout North Hills. The current footprint on Rowan, well, right there on Rowan and Six Forks, is not large enough to accommodate their ladder truck and their other engine and other facilities, so they need to find another location. Kane made a contribution of $500,000 toward that project. There's a fire master plan that is before council that's identifying stations that will be renovated, ones that will be built. So that was separate from what was happening. There was a need for another fire station with a ladder truck, and that footprint wasn't large enough to accommodate it.
Okay, so that had nothing to do with the Kane.
Yeah, no. There's this thing. Yeah, like I said, I mean, I worked in New York where there was 9/11. There's no ladder truck that gets up that high. They have what they call a fire. There's a stairwell that is secured by fire. No one expected something at 9/11, and then they have a pipe. And then if you ever go in, you'll see hoses per floor. They go through that secured stairwell, and then they fight it floor by floor with the standpipe that shoots up water to that floor to put out the fire, not the ladder truck.
Okay.
I'm glad you brought that up because really the firemen have to go up through the building to rescue the people.
They do.
There's no way to get around that.
Correct.
Okay, anybody else? I'll just leave it all with one comment. We keep talking about consistency with both the comprehensive plan and Midtown area plan. I think it's just a matter of how inconsistent you have to be before planning rules that whether it's consistent or inconsistent. There is no way that certain features within both the Midtown plan and the comprehensive plan are consistent with what was proposed. Building height was just one of them, and the others were going to stand out as the plan moves forward. So I have a real problem when you say it's consistent. Planning said among themselves it was mostly consistent, yet they ruled it as consistent. I think that's something that has to be sorted out in the future. How much inconsistency do you need before you rule something is consistent? And I
Oh, I
don't think,
absolutely agree. I
okay.
look forward to that conversation, the comprehensive plan. I won't bore everyone here now, but as the new plan evolves, you hit the nail on the head. I'll be bringing that up. Far too often, we have cases there are some cities that only have 5 or 10 criteria for consistency. We have 600. And so any case can be consistent and inconsistent, so it becomes a wash. The primary ones in this case is the comprehensive plan and the future land use plan. And then there become other considerations such as the Midtown plan and other policies. So there will be a fresh look at consistency. So Larry, I agree with you again, and that's something that will unfold as we take a look at the new comprehensive plan.
Well, I look forward to working with you in the future, and maybe we can get some of these issues resolved because to me, the process is broke. It's been broke for a while. So need to do a better job of both the review process before it even gets to council. So that's from my viewpoint. Okay.
A quick comment about impact fees. We call them
Yeah.
something else, but there is impact fees for parks and transportation only. That's governed by the General Assembly. We cannot go beyond that. And so we do collect impact fees for parks that stays within a district and transportation, which stays within the district. The city is divided up into these impact fee districts, and where that lands, that goes into that fund for future improvements to either transportation or parks. So we do require impact fees.
Okay. I did see a question or a comment in chat.
Yeah.
But that's the one Mitchell just
Oh, okay.
reacted to, I believe.
Roberta, you want to make a closing statement?
Well, Pam was trying to get in and couldn't get in, and she wanted to know because she's on her phone. She said once the fire station moves, what happens to that piece of land? Is that also Kane? He owns the whole thing, or he owns part of it? Is that going to be another zoning issue, or what's going on with that?
My understanding, it's city-owned land, and then the city has a process for how they dispose of it. They can look for another use. There are requirements if they want to sell it to the market. But my understanding is that it is city-owned and it is not under Kane Realty's ownership. There's a sliver I think they own nearby, but the actual station itself is city-owned land.
Yeah, that corner is definitely city owned. I will tell you that Kane has tried to buy it for a number of years. So what the future holds, I really don't know.
Okay, thank you.
All right, let's as long as there's nobody else, let's move on to our next topic. Mitchell, thank you for all your commentary. Appreciate it. Let's see. David Rao, are you online by chance? I didn't see you listed. Is there anybody else here that would like to address the missing middle case on Six Forks and with near Anderson Drive involving Anderson Forest? Yes, no, maybe. Okay, I guess we'll have to update that one in the future. For everybody's awareness, there are two lots that sit on Six Forks Road right near Anderson Drive. Those two lots, there's a plan to convert them, according to Missing Middle, to add 16 townhomes. That project was once actually a rezoning, and that rezoning was rejected once before, but it's now at some stage because it's allowable under Missing Middle. Roadways will have to be extremely narrow. I don't think there's sufficient resources for it. But again, I'll let the people involved give me an update and I'll pass that on to you. So, all right. Having said that, let's move on to the Big Branch Greenway Connector.
Jane Hubbard had her hand raised.
Oh, missed that.
Sorry on the last name.
Did she still have her hand up?
She's muted.
She's attempting to unmute.
Thanks, Shelley.
Jane, maybe put it in the chat.
Jane was going to ask about the traffic for the missing middle project.
Oh, Jane, you're unmuted now.
Okay. The traffic on Six Forks is terrible, and this does relate also to the traffic at North Hills, because that's Six Forks Road, and they're proposing putting a 16 unit housing, and how they're going to get out, they have to be treated as a service roadway and not a street, and that's how they're going to allow those 16 people's houses to come out on Six Forks Road at that intersection with no stoplight. And we know that between North Hills all the way to Wake Forest, traffic there is terrible too. So my question would be, how can they approve not even a street, but kind of like a driveway for 16 units onto North Hills Drive, onto Six Forks Road? There are probably no answers.
No, that's why I was hoping that there was somebody here could update us on the status of that, because you're right, on paper, it's something that should never occur.
No.
It's in probably the worst location it could possibly be.
It is. It is.
It sits just above the Anderson Road intersection in Six Forks, I think. So, and by the way, Six Forks is going to get a lot worse as well when they start building out the 1,000 residential units that are going to go up where the credit union is, just on the other side of the Beltline.
Right.
That's going to be a major impact on Six Forks, and I think all they're going to do there is perhaps rearrange the traffic lights and put in a turn lane to facilitate easier traffic movement. Again, at some point, all of Six Forks is going to have to be looked at, whether it's a main corridor or just a parkway. All right. Can we move on? I guess we can. All right, let's get back to the Big Branch Greenway Connector. And Kim, do you want to lead off with that one?
Again, I think Jane is handling that.
Okay.
I'm
What do I know?
Okay. Yes, you were asked to give a presentation maybe on what's the future, but I don't think we could understand the future without understanding how we got here. In November of 25, City Council voted to approve moving forward with the construction of a short segment of the Big Branch Greenway from Six Forks Road to Town Drive, that it includes an 800-foot-long greenway along Six Forks Road and approximately 1,150 feet through 9 Anderson Forest backyards. Let's review that, what occurred with this. We first learned about the city's plans during the sewer replacement project when we were informed, not by the city, that the city planned to construct a greenway on Big Branch immediately following the sewer project. They had notified us. City Greenway staff assumed that an existing easement, which was only a scenic easement, allowed for greenway construction, but that assumption was false. The city staff made public presentations and conducted a first public survey representing that it had a greenway construction easement. People voted on with that in mind. Further, it misrepresented the corridor along Big Branch by calling it wooded and natural rather than describing it accurately as previously landscaped yards, which in the process of the sewer replacement project we lost 8 trees in our yard. And most of the vegetation and trees are gone now. So I think that the route that had the highest public support in that survey was the street side route, not ours, with 49%. There were 4 alternatives. The city called the first survey inconclusive and doubled down on their preferred route that included Anderson Forest backyards. Anderson Forest residents made the city aware that the existing easement granted to the city in 1986 was only a scenic conservation easement, and that it specifically prohibited a greenway, trail, sidewalk, or any other impervious surface on this fragile street. Despite our inquiries, it took the city many months to even acknowledge that easement restriction. And they had already said they had it in the first survey. By the time the city acknowledged the restrictions, it had already contracted and spent approximately $200,000 of tax dollars on consultants in pursuit of their preferred route. The city then didn't like what the first survey said, so they proceeded with the second public survey. The survey misled the public in many ways. The city mentioned the easement without describing it as the restriction on it is only scenic. Therefore, the public thought, again, it's a greenway. It called our backyard stream side, which of course you want to vote for, and the other option was street side. It used misleading Photoshop images of our backyard where it didn't show large raised sewer manholes with tall venting pipes. The one in our yard is 16 feet tall. So it looked like a perfect spot. It failed to show mention the flooding issues. It failed to mention that the streamside route also ran along Six Forks Road, heavy traffic. No mention of a required ramp and bridges was made. It even omitted cost estimates for the various options, though they had done that in the first survey, since this preferred route through our backyards would be much more expensive. The city's subterfuge and egregious behavior led to the City Parks, Rec, and Greenway Advisory Board that advises council calling him out for the misuse of misleading Photoshop images and bias in the public surveys. This advisory board voted 9-5 not to recommend this route to City Council. Survey bias of flooding and environmental concerns were key objections made by committee members. To construct a greenway in Anderson Forest backyards, the city will have to violate its own scenic easement that Anderson Forest residents have honored since 1986. We cannot find a single occurrence in North Carolina where a city has condemned its own conservation easement. Construction will need expensive land acquisition from uncooperative homeowners faced with losing over half their backyards when we have always also lost our front yards to a city sidewalk. No place to play in. Condemnation will likely be required. Big Branch is protected also by the Neuse River riparian buffer rules that call for an undisturbed buffer alongside this fragile stream extending 30 feet from the stream bank. Almost all the proposed construction will fall inside this protected buffer. So special water quality permitting is needed and may or may not be granted. The state's responsible for this and they should act according to the plan. We have neighborhood children who are preschool who will be playing within feet of the greenway. Is that safe for them? Big Branch is subject to sudden and sometimes very turbulent flooding in the narrow floodplain running through our backyards. The city never disclosed this. These floodwaters funnel into a culvert under Six Forks Road near where a downward ramp from Six Forks is proposed, and that ramp is needed to get down from Six Forks to the floodplain level. Floodwaters come rushing downstream from way beyond Millbrook Road, and the additional impervious surface at North Hills has worsened the situation. Flash flooding can occur very quickly. This year it occurred in 9 minutes, and it presents a danger for users of the Greenway. Flooding will also require Greenway closing and higher ongoing maintenance. The city has told us they will construct a privacy fence in our yard, and it will be a safety railing. Privacy fences will have to be open to let the floodwaters through when they come. And so there's no privacy in that because it will be open fencing. It must have breaks in it so Greenway users can escape if they're caught in a sudden flood. No security for us in that. Greenway users would walk between safety railing on one side and privacy fencing on the other. Hardly a natural experience. Not only does City Council dismiss citizens' concern about tall buildings adjacent to residential neighborhoods or the traffic, or do they listen to their own advisory council composed of park and greenway advocates? But council voted to follow city staff's recommendation instead. We have continued to ask City Council to reevaluate their decision. We will continue to point out the city's staff's biased behavior and subterfuge, which I think should be called out by the council. If City Council does not change their decision, eventually the long process of the condemnation of our property will begin, which we will oppose. And that's where it is right now. City Council has disregarded all these factors and voted to do it.
Okay, thank you, Jane. It is a shame. As I pointed out earlier, there are other alternatives that may have been considered or may not have been considered. One of which, there's an area off Industrial Drive where there'll be $1 million bridge eventually put up by the developer, paid for by the city primarily, to have people cross the Crabtree Creek to access the Greenway. And that then opens up possible travel up Industrial Drive, which is going to be well developed in the future, and it could easily be developed for a Greenway. But again, the question is, I guess, and Mitchell, I know it's not your district, but the question really is, it's how do we bring this topic forward and perhaps get more focus on it? That's one question for you. And then before we answer that, I'd like to bring Steve. Steve, you on board here? Since Steve is part of the Parks and Greenway and Recreation Committee, I wanted to get his 2 cents thrown in here as well, because he's been involved with it. He was active on the vote for it, and he knows further details. Steve, you with us?
Yeah, Larry. You see, I believe I'm unmuted.
You are.
Okay. No, this was a difficult decision. I mean, because it was a multi-part decision. And you're right, the Parks Board was divided on the on 1B. We did not send up a decision there on recommending it, and we left it to council. That's a simple version. The Parks Board is a advisory board, so it's merely our advice to council, and we did not agree on that particular direction in terms of going up through 1B. Those of us who did not agree on it felt that maybe further investigation was made sense, and that maybe a better recommendation could have come. That was sort of it. I don't know what more I could tell you. I did walk the site. Many of us walked the site, and we felt there were issues there. And we're hoping for a better recommendation, but that's not how it turned out.
Thanks, Steve. So now, Mitchell, I come back to you. You've heard the situation. You may have heard it before when it was presented. It's come up before. And how do you get council to refocus back on this project and perhaps come out with a better recommendation? There are several alternatives that should have been considered.
I don't think council is going to revisit this. As all the neighbors in the Anderson area know, I also went out for a site visit with council member Lambert Melton, both with neighbors of several of the routes, the street side, the stream side. We spent an entire morning walking the entire site, and then we looked at the alternatives that were before us. I know council, in terms of making a decision, learning from other capital projects, the longer you wait, the more it's going to cost. And so for us, we had the information before us. Everyone's going to have an opinion about how things transpired. We asked a lot of questions, had a lot of debate about the alternative. And in the end of the day, we did not have a recommendation for the Parks and Rec Board. We had to bring it to the table. And after going through, the decision was made that this was the best option of what was presented to us. I think even the council member Lambert Melton said this is a tough one. We wish there were other alternatives. We pressed the Parks Department. They shared the other alternatives in terms of issues with cost. At the end of the day, by not unanimous vote, by majority vote, we felt that this was the best option. And I am very pessimistic, or not optimistic, that the council is going to bring this back.
So you're saying that the public has no choice at this point?
I'm not saying the public has any. We go through a transparent process where we deliberate on these matters. We hear from the public. We went out for a site visit. I don't do that for all cases, but for this one, I was asked by the neighbors to come out, and they very diplomatically went with one group to see one of the options and the other group for the other. And we spend an entire time walking so we can see and hear their concerns. So these decisions are always tough. But at the end of the day, we were presented with another segment to build out our park greenway system, which I think is recognized around the country, the importance of not just for recreation, but for transportation. And given the alternatives, we chose the one we thought was the best of what was given to us.
Okay. Were you aware of the bridge that's going to be coming in?
I can tell you that we had extensive conversations with the Parks Department about all the alternatives and the cost and what was needed. All of us, I don't have all my notes about each of the different projects, but at the end of the day, we chose the one that we felt was the best of what we were presented.
Is there a position paper on that decision?
What do you mean by petition?
You said you evaluated all the costs of all the proposals.
Yeah, the Parks Department provided that. They provided all the alternatives, the cost. Yes, that is in the public documents. There's nothing that we decided council that is done behind closed doors. So all that information was included in the packet. The same information the Parks and Greenway Board got as well. We received the same information and asked even more questions. And quite a few of us went out for a site visit as well.
Okay. Any further comment?
Yes, I'd like to know why cost estimates were never developed for the Hines Drive route, which would be by far the cheapest route. If the multimodal bridge does not go through, you could connect from Six Forks to Waketown Drive for less than $500,000 with sidewalk street marketing.
I don't know how to. Yeah.
And 35% of the people, even in that second survey, voted for that option, but no cost estimates were ever done for it.
Yeah, I can't answer the question. I don't recall the information. It was a big packet with a lot of alternatives. I don't want to say one or the other. I just don't recall if we were presented with that option.
I'll just point out that Hines was the opted route for that particular greenway in the Midtown area plan.
Yes, it was.
Should have gotten more weight.
City, that was never mentioned by city staff, by the way. I tried to bring it up, but it was never mentioned by Parks Director or Assistant Director in their presentations to the board. In fact, the Parks Recreation Greenway Advisory Board would not even be aware of that connector had I not brought it up. And yet that's in the plan.
Yep.
And I know, like Steve, when he came to our backyards, was concerned with the raised sewer manholes, because there's 6 along 9 lots. There's also, of course, two riprap drainage ditches to cross. But that was the manhole that is 6 feet in diameter, the cylinder, and 2 feet off the ground. It was photoshopped out of what was presented to the public. And I ought to know it's in my backyard. I just wonder, Mitch, are you concerned about the subterfuge that the city used in presenting this to the public?
We may have a difference of opinion on that one. We just have a difference of opinion.
Do you?
I've heard the public comments, and council did his due diligence, asking all the questions we thought were appropriate to help us get to an answer. So I don't really have a comment, or I do support staff. If there's an issue with something, we take up with the city manager, but I find them to be forthcoming professionals. Sometimes information they have to provide is not always what people want to hear, but I've not known them to manipulate. I was at the site. I saw, in terms of the existing conditions of what was above ground, the distance between the homes and the stream. But now I cannot say that staff intentionally manipulates or misleading information. I can't concur with that.
Well, I would ask you to go back and listen to the discussion of your advisory committee from where they called out the city for their misrepresentations and their bias in their surveys. I think that's no way for a state agency to behave.
Okay.
Or city agency.
Jane, did you have a comment? Go ahead.
I think there should be repercussions for actually their behavior. And if you're always trusting them, how can that be when we factually know that they misrepresented our backyard? And that was confirmed by the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board. They said the same thing. As a matter of fact, one person said to us, this makes the city look bad. It was that much of a bias. That's the end of my comment.
Okay.
But I don't trust
you.
I mean, most of this, the presentations, of course, are recorded. So it's very easy to go back and point to misrepresentations. And it's certainly easy to do on the photographs.
Yeah, I've got to just put one comment in there. Even I was misled by the survey. When it listed Streamside Greenway, that sounds like a perfect situation without knowing the details. And I think that's what happened with the bias survey.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And
Yep.
of course, there was a get out the Greenway people that had never seen our backyards, so that they came out. It's sort of like the letters that were written in support of the towers at North Hills. You know, you can always get out the vote, so to speak.
Yep.
But I do think the city needs to require a certain level of behavior from its staff, and that is not a good representation for the city.
And the way it started too, I mean, the idea that the city identified a route based and told the public that they had a construction greenway easement and didn't even check what kind of easement they had. That's not very professional either, is it?
Well, from my point of view, it's really sad because Midtown Plan is what was cited as the reason that they were going to construct the Greenway to begin with, yet didn't follow the recommendation within the plan.
Exactly. And it cited all these old master plans that called for development. And we go to those plans and checked, and there's no mention of it.
Yeah.
You know, so just another other example of misrepresentation. But it is what it is, and we're not giving up.
Good. Yeah, I'd like to see it come to a just outcome myself. Okay, I guess we've beaten this one up pretty good. I have one other topic. That's the Green Street approach for Quail Hollow Drive. Now, this is a little bit more localized and probably affects less people because it's, in my case, it's my main drive through my neighborhood. So it's a little personal to me and perhaps some of the people online tonight. Problem I have with it, again, it's a city initiative following the Midtown area plan. That's what the justification is. I don't think there's any, they're going to put a bike lane on it, take away parking on one side of the street. That in itself isn't that unbearable. The bigger problem is they're going to put the bike lane on the street and has no connectivity. Once you get to Millbrook and move forward. It has no connectivity once you get to St. Albans and move forward. Now, maybe at some point those segments will come forward, but in the meantime, I haven't seen any of that planning on the part of the bike committee. I haven't seen any of that planning on the part of the city. And I think before we finish with this project and just like everybody else, roll over and let it be done, I think it's important that it be fully explored and all of the issues be resolved. There is an online survey that's going to show everybody the results from the Green Street project. The simplest way to find it, if you didn't get a mailing and you don't know anything about it, is just go to the city website. In the search box, just type in Quail Hollow, and then an immediate choice will become Quail Hollow, Green Street, Phase 1. And I encourage everybody to read all the details on the plan. And I think there's a survey associated with it, and go ahead and complete the survey. I have not done it yet myself. The survey is open till February 27th. And I'm just encouraging everybody to go out and look at it. I'll put it in my next newsletter out to the community, just to make everybody aware of it. I could put it in the chat, I guess. Maybe that would help.
Or put a link in your newsletter so you can
Yeah,
go right.
I'll put a link in the newsletter to get it out to everybody. That'd be a lot easier. And then the last issue I wanted to discuss was just the upcoming primary election. Make sure everybody understands it.
No.
Well, on the primary, there aren't that many choices.
Right.
The one big one that's going to be there is there are 6 at-large candidates. 4 will move on to the general election because there are 2 at-large candidates, and you have to have basically 2 candidates for each at-large, so there'll be 4. There is a terrific opportunity to hear all of the at-large candidates tomorrow night. I'm going to do a little promo here for the Hillsborough Wade CAC. I have put out a link to that I will put out another link to that and post it on Nextdoor so everybody's aware of it. But I think you've all received the link for that if in my last newsletter, but I'll go ahead and republish that. So that's two things I have to republish, and I'll get those out as quickly as I can do that. So before I wrap up, as Mitchell inferred before, I wanted to get back. David, I see your hand. Just let me finish this. Mitchell referred to the Transportation Committee meeting. It's unfortunate it's not going to be as advertised in January. I guess we didn't stick around long enough to hear the wrap up for the committee meetings. Megan had announced that it would be the January 29th meeting, but that's not correct. It's going to be the February, I think. 26th should be right. It's the fourth Thursday of February. And I think it's 3:00. Isn't that correct? I think that's correct. But I'll send that out for sure. And that's when the discussion about Six Forks will occur. So don't go to the January meeting assuming that you're going to speak about Six Forks. That conversation will occur in February. David, you want to add a comment? David? David?
All right, there we go. Sorry about that. So I'll just point out, since I travel, or talk to different groups, perhaps outside of this one, when you had that piece in West Street rezoning, Sig Hutchinson basically said, and he's not in charge, but he does know people who are working on developments in the county and in the city. North Raleigh's going to grow. The city itself is going to come up Capitol. It's going to come up Atlantic. They're talking about bringing it across on Six Forks. And so, you're not going to get the Parkway. I only bring this up because you mentioned the word Parkway. Six Forks should probably be viewed as something that'll soon be a city street in the next 10 to 15 years with a max speed sometimes of 30 miles an hour if there's not a lot of traffic. Quail Hollow, bike lane aside, whether or not it happens, I know there's not really a grid system in that part of North Hills between Millbrook and down to Hardymont, but that's the closest thing you have. I mean, I've been following this group now for like 11 or 12 years, and the discussion used to be NCODs and everything else instead of missing middle. The city of Raleigh, just in little bits and pieces, keeps telling this group, we're building North Raleigh from Seaboard, from P Street, north to North Hills. It's not going to be two different places. It eventually, in 20 years, to accommodate the growth somebody mentioned around 200,000 people, it will be one urban corridor. And so I'll point out again, trying to fight that instead of accepting it and understanding it and seeing how to make that work just makes things more frustrating, I think. It may not be something that some of you want, but I'm pretty confident it will happen, just like downtown South will definitely happen at some point. You just can't add 200,000 people without expanding that way. So good luck with it, but I don't see Six Forks ever getting any faster or lanes being widened. I see it turning into more of a city street over the next 20 years, but good luck with it.
David, thank you for your comment. I don't really disagree with you. What I come back to is what Mitchell referred to earlier. We have a comprehensive plan. We have a Midtown area plan. The Midtown area plan in particular looked at all of the development that was going to come into the area. This was back in 2016. We took that approach because we knew that when Wegmans was coming in, Northside project was going to come in, North Hills was going to expand. The point was there had to be a plan that would include infrastructure planning, but the city doesn't follow that plan. So even though they're going to do a 2050 comprehensive plan, if you're going to make up your own rules of what's appropriate, maybe for the benefit of the city, not necessarily for the benefit of the people, then things have to change. And I think with that, Whitney, I see your hand, but I want to turn the meeting back over to Mitchell. I want Mitchell to
Chuck Newcomer has his hand up.
Yes, if I could, please. I know we went over it real quickly, but it concerns the Quail Hollow, Green Street, and the new survey that came out. Had just a few questions that would probably help us respond to the new design plan. First of all, what would be the approximate distribution of the flyer that went out on the on the new survey? Was that Quail Hollow and Hickory Hollow
I don't really know the answer.
subdivisions or?
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that because sometimes the mailers only go to the houses that are on the street. This particular one, I think, went to all the houses on the connecting streets off of Quail
Okay,
Hollow.
that makes sense, sure.
It'd be simple to ask. Leuven, did you get one of the postcards? Leuven sits off of Wingate. That's why I'm kind of
Can we
curious.
We
take
got
that
them
as
on
an
Wingate.
action item,
You did?
maybe, for
Okay.
the city? Can we take it as an action item to see where it was distributed, maybe with the city or the transportation department, whatever?
Yes.
I mean, because they have a list of
Yes.
the
But we can do a
streets.
simple poll here. Steve, you got one?
Yeah.
Now, Steve lives off of Alcott, which comes off of Wingate. So it looks like they pretty much covered all the streets associated with Quail Hollow Drive. It looks like they had a pretty extensive distribution. Unlike, for example, when they do the traffic calming and they do the survey, that's a very limited survey and usually only impacts the people within a certain distance from the street under discussion. But this particular one, recognizing that it affects all the neighborhoods around the street, looks like they did a pretty exhaustive postcard distribution.
And had a quick question before our council member leaves us. Is the Quail Hollow design and approval going to come before the city council, or is this all going to be handled by staff as to what's going to happen?
Good question. I don't know. It's part of the Midtown area plan. I think just like that's a good question. I don't know.
It's gonna, yeah, anything that's major like this is gonna come before council.
Okay, it's not just going to be
whether it's a plan or a capital project, it will come before council.
Okay.
Yeah.
In one big package, or this be brought up as a separate agenda item or more of a consensus agenda?
I doubt it'll be consent agenda.
Okay.
This is something council's gonna want to talk about, so.
All right.
Yeah, it's
And then-
got three parts to it. I mean, it's got the bicycle pathway, it's got the Green Street application, and it's got traffic calming. So those three segments have to be thought out pretty thoroughly. And I know this traffic calming in particular usually comes in front of council. And I would think the Green Street application certainly would, because it's fairly novel. Bike path, I'm not sure about.
All right. And then, just one final point, since it's
Sure.
something similar is brought up earlier this evening. I did go and look at the new design plan presented by the city. And unfortunately, they implied that from the initial survey done this summer, that the response was extremely favorable to the plan. And, from looking at the comments, everybody else raised this summer, I would say that, most of the comments, or the overwhelming majority of the comments, did not favor the two-way bike lane, nor the elimination of the on-street parking on Quail Hollow.
Yeah, that was my
Full
understanding.
disclosure, I live right on the east side of Quail Hollow, have since '92. So.
Right, and we're not anti-bike path at all.
We bike.
But what about something like they did on North Hills, where you have a bike path, but you also have parking? I mean, I would think there would be some alternatives where it doesn't impact the residents so much. Plus, like you say, there's nowhere to go. I mean, you go up Quail Hollow, and then what?
Yep.
You're gonna have to take your chances of crossing Millbrook and Spring Forest, and all of that. So it's just not a great design.
No,
those are all good
dangerous,
questions.
very dangerous design.
Yeah.
Mhm. Those are all good questions. I will direct them back to the people involved. I offered to have them come back out to our CAC meeting. They've decided they're not going to do any more in-person meetings. So that's why I say it. Yeah, because they pretty much know what the response will be. And it's the same way with the Greenway people, that they're not coming out either. So I'll certainly take those into consideration, bring those right back to the people involved with Green Street development.
Thank you, Larry.
Yep, appreciate it.
Let's see.
Larry Ron Brown has his hand up.
Let's go for it.
Yes, I was just put my hand up to respond to the question about the mailing. I live on the corner of Brookhurst and Purdue, and I did receive the mailing.
Thank you.
Great.
And Whitney has his hand up.
Yeah, I wanted to just respond to what David said. David, I have had a few spirited conversations about density and stuff. I think it's a good contrast with out at North Hills and what happened down there on West and Peace Street. Downtown, we are going to have density. It's just necessary, and the people who live down there want to have the density largely, although there's some people in single family houses a ways down and that type of thing. And those are really tough decisions to make. But as I've been out talking to folks out in the North Hills area and stuff, I've generally found no one's against development down there. Everyone wants it. But they just don't want to be in the shadow of 37, 40, story buildings. And that's sort of reasonable. And I think long term, maybe this zoning change went through, but we got to look at what kind of Raleigh that we want to have. And I just think that having high rises all along as we get out into residential areas and stuff like that is not a real great thing.
Yeah, and let me just reiterate what Larry said earlier. We're embarking, and I'm very likely that it's going to be approved under the next council, that the 2030 plan actually gave us a pretty good blueprint. They identified 8 growth centers where growth should occur, higher density, downtown, Midtown, West Raleigh near Lenovo Center, Briar Creek, around Triangle Town Center, Wake Med. All that had been identified and around the Village District. It all had been identified to accommodate this 200,000 to 250,000 people that we were going to grow. The last time it was around 200,000, and we grew by that. And it actually followed through at those growth centers. When I was plan director, we predicted 70% of all of our growth should happen in those 8 growth centers. And believe it or not, 70% of Raleigh's growth happened in those growth centers. I'm going to speak in a minute, but now we're eyeing new opportunities that I think will be less intrusive, but I'll wait till that time comes. And so to accommodate that growth, we want to have areas where we can be more dense, but other areas we want it low density. The issues are the fringes, those transition areas between the higher density and the lower density neighborhoods. And that is something that I believe should be a keen focus for the next comprehensive plan, because that is a reality that we're going to have to deal with, and among other issues. But as we're talking about density, that one's going to be key.
Okay.
I think you want to turn to me for some closing.
I think you're up. I just want to check
Yep.
and make sure that we've gotten everybody's
Yep.
comments and hands, and we've taken care of all our past
So,
business. I think
I will
yes,
be
I think
quick.
you're up.
I do have a District A meeting this Thursday at the Ann Gordon Center. So I'm just going to share with you, we had a council retreat. It was supposed to be 2 days, but the weather challenged our plans. But we talked about the budget financial outlook for the city, took a hard look at our parking and parking decks, about what we should keep and what we should consider selling. We had a big conversation about our bonds, looking at the next round, and then another conversation about what we call steady state capital funding. In the past, we put out these bonds for parks, we put out bonds for transportation. We're now looking at a different model called steady state. Rather than doing this every 5 or 7 years, it'll be on a cycle of literally every 4 years. And right now we're looking at a package of about 203. If that goes to the taxpayers, there would be a 0 tax increase for the 203. We go above 203, then there will be a tax increase. But we figured out a way of having a steady state capital funding that would not be any impact to the taxpayer. So that was a big conversation. And that's when I brought up the new conversation about Six Forks. So that was at the council retreat. And I'll talk a little bit more about that at my council meeting. Of course, I'm going to talk about the North Hills because that's top of mind for everyone. So I'll be prepared to answer questions. We had a new noise ordinance that went into effect January 1st. I'll also talk about, as I mentioned, steady state, and then some more information about the Six Forks and let people know that meeting will be held at the end of February. Unfortunately, I'll be out of the country. I was hoping to be here for Thursday, but I'll be out of the country for that one. So I will miss that one, but my colleagues pretty much know, and I've shared with them the issues that are important to me. So, and then after I give my update, I typically open it up for any questions or comments people have. I try to keep my comments to 15 minutes at most, maybe 20, and then I just open it up for residents just to share what's on their mind. So that's again this Thursday, 6 to 7. That's the amount of time they give us. So I look forward to seeing you there and talking to you all in person.
Thank you. One small comment, by the way, you had a discussion about parking lots.
Yes. Parking decks. It was primarily focused on parking decks. We have some underperforming decks. We did talk about parking policy in general, everything you can think of. It was a very good conversation. I don't know if it's recorded, but I found it very beneficial. But the focus is some of our parking decks. Can we sell them? Downtown, which ones do we keep? Because we have 2-hour free parking, it's coming with a cost. And so the mayor had asked for this meeting on parking downtown in general. What areas are metered, which ones are not. So there was a really big conversation about parking in general, but a hyper focus on some of our parking decks, which some we own and it's paid off, and others we still have debt on them.
I'm just going to make the general comment that the day that the decision was rendered at City Council, and many of us went to come downtown and park in the municipal garage, there was a very misleading occurrence where they marked the lot as being full. Those of us that were dumb enough to believe the sign and scurried around to find other parking didn't realize that it didn't really mean that the lot was full. What they meant was they were saving spaces within the municipal building parking lot specifically for the city council meeting, but you had to pull in, get in line to realize that. So I'm just pointing that out, that was a little, maybe it was helpful, but in reality, it caused many of us to scurry around and try to find a parking spot.
Right. And in the master plan, I mean, that deck was probably the oldest of all of our decks. And so as the City Hall master plan fulfills itself, that deck will be taken down and new one will be built. And so we'll have to figure out what do we do in the interim with the new hearing room at the new City Hall. And right now, the 301 Hillsborough Street seems to be the overflow deck. So we are aware of that and we're working it out, but I hear you. I had mentioned particular when I pass there, I see deck full.
Yeah.
And we have people coming to hearings. They want convenient parking, people that have disability issues. So that's something we definitely have to figure out, but I hear you, Larry.
Thank you. Okay. Anything else? Anything I've overlooked? I think I've covered it all. I encourage you all to attend the virtual meeting tomorrow night to hear all the at-large candidates. Maybe the only opportunity we'll have before now and voting for the primary, because I think early voting starts early February, so it's going to come upon us really quick. So encouraging to do that, and I'll send out a reminder for everybody. So
yeah, and just so you all know, you probably don't know this about me, but I'm a marathon runner, and I will not be here at the end of February because I'll be flying to Tokyo to run the Tokyo Marathon. I run a lot of the streets in my district, but going down Six Forks is downhill. I don't like hills, so I tend to take Falls of News going north. So this has been a lot of running. I get to see a lot of Raleigh, the greenways, the streets, the sidewalks. And so I'm pretty aware of what happens. And I know some of the challenges, some of our crosswalks and sidewalks and buttons, which I push and they never seem to cycle to walk. And I can name those locations.
yes,
So it's my way of kind of doing self surveys as I run the miles in this city. And I primarily stay in Raleigh, but my favorite route tends to be going north on Falls of News, where it tends to be a little more flatter. Six Forks, there are some elevations, particularly through when you get to, I think, Newton, going all the way up to Lynn Road. That's one big dip that I try to avoid.
Yeah. Well, best of luck in the marathon. And I'll tell you a quick story. When I first moved down here back in 81, I brought a 3-speed bike with me that only had 1 speed left. Found out very quickly you cannot ride a bike within Raleigh without going up and down hills.
This is true. I found the flat courses, but still there are hills. But anyway, thank you all. Look forward to seeing some of you on Thursday. But if not, I'm sure I'll see you around.
Yes, and I'll promote your meeting as I always do. Okay, I think we're good. Let's see. Actually getting out early, not as early as I expected, but getting out early. Those of you, is anything I missed, send me a note. Do read all my emails, try to get back to y'all. So appreciate everybody for coming out tonight, at least virtually. And as it turned out, by the way, small message here, the park facilities were closed today. They didn't send out notice for that until 5 o'clock today. But since we had already anticipated that, that's why we went virtual for tonight. So even if we had wanted to meet in the community center, it would have been closed. So we did the right thing, at least putting it virtually. And I'm glad we had the opportunity to talk tonight. So thanks all for attending, and have a great week.
Thank you.
Thank you.